Okay, cool. Like I said, everybody, good morning. My name is Camilla Arnudo. I'm with 360 Business Growth as well as Danica. We're really pumped to be teaching this class today. It's super timely for the crazy busy season that we're in right now. And we really want to start by thanking you all for being here. Trust me, when we know just as much as you do that there are so many Zoom meetings right now, and you can literally choose to do anything with your life today and not be here. So know that we recognize and appreciate the fact that you are here. But to honor all of our time, we are going to move through things pretty efficiently. And something else to know about us is that we don't believe in just talking at you, because that's the worst part of school. So we will be asking you to raise your hand, give us a thumbs up, that sort of thing, just to make sure that we're all like still here and focused. So let's try it out. Here we go. Super exciting. Give me a thumbs up if you're still with us. Like 1 minute in, so it'd be pretty bad. Okay, cool. We're doing good, Danica. Cool.
Good. I know that everyone who's not off camera also gave us a thumbs up. I can feel that in my soul. Hello, my name is Danica. Like Camilla mentioned before, we're with 360 Business Growth, as Camilla mentioned as well. Just to kind of introduce you a little bit to like who we are. So basically our team specializes in practices to deepen client relationships. So a couple things to know about us. Last year, our team did about $1 million in business. This year, we're going to do 2. The most important thing for you to know, though, is about us is that basically our job is broken down into 2 parts. So number 1, our job is speaking in front of people, teaching classes, talking, that kind of thing. And then the second thing is following up with people that we've spoken in front of, right? So that's basically what we do. We speak in front of people, then we follow up, speak and then follow up. The most important thing about that to know is that 99% of our business comes from just those things. So so I'm not sure how your business model is broken down, but for us, like our business model is speaking and then following up with the people we've spoken in front of you. We don't get people from literally anywhere else. We generate all of our business from that. So basically our goal here today is help you not just, like you don't necessarily have to make 99% of your business come from your speaking time or your speaking engagements or whatever it is that you're doing in this kind of way. But we want to make sure that you can help utilize the opportunities that we all have as affiliates in like SCORE and other associations and other opportunities that we have to help generate more business in that way, because we know so many people aren't necessarily utilizing it to the maximum capacity that they could be. But before we get into kind of like the how and like how to break down what that looks like, let's start off with the mindset. So raise your hand if you consider yourself a professional speaker. Fantastic.
Nobody? Okay, that's okay. So this is kind of like what we want to shift your mindset around, right? So as affiliates and in this industry, our job is to be a speaker. You are a professional speaker. Congratulations. I have anointed you. Not in the sense that you're filling stadiums like Tony Robbins does, but you are getting in front of a group of people to discuss what it is that you do and inspiring them to take action. So surprise, that makes you a speaker. So when you can shift this from a task that you have on your to-do list, like I gotta go to this meeting, I talk to this group of people or whatever, to an identity, I'm a speaker and this generates business for me, your focus and your energy around it really, really changes. So that's the first thing that we would like y'all to shift today, and to write in your notes if you're note takers like we are. You're a speaker, I am a speaker, and really powerful things can happen when you put things in front of the beginning of the sentence, I am. So we definitely want to start there. So let's give you a roadmap of where we're headed in class today.
So today, kind of like our roadmap, our plan is we're going to cover why it matters, of course, right? Basically how to develop multiple pitches. We're going to start big and kind of like narrow it down from there. And then we're going to give you some really easy strategies for refining your craft to really make it so that like at the end of the day today, or at the end of this class today, at the end of this class today, you're going to leave with a really clear plan on how to utilize 100% of your speaking time that's available to you, and be able to generate business from that more so than you ever have before. So we hope.
Cool. No, we know. So let's start with the first. So why does it matter for you? Here's the punchline in our philosophy, y'all, is that all things being equal, people do business with and refer business to people they know, they like, and they trust. Great quote by Bob Burg. I'm sure it's not earth shattering. You're like, yeah, I've heard that one before. But I really want y'all to just really sink into that and recognize that that quote has power, right? And that's our goal, is that we can come and we can teach you how to do that, because a lot of the times what we find in our industry is people don't know people, they don't like them, and they don't trust them. And so it's really hard to do business from that place, right?
The next guest says there are stocks you can buy that will do well.
So
What is that
sounds
sound?
like if someone could mute themselves, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Here we go. I got it.
Perfect. All right. So we're going to start off with the know, like, and trust, right? That's KLT, know, like, trust. So oftentimes what happens with speakers is, especially like if you have like a really short amount of speaking time, oftentimes a lot of people say, okay, what can I teach you about what I do right now, instead of who you are and why you're the right choice for them. So one of the big things, regardless of setting, communicating yourself more effectively is going to help in the long run, because people work with people that they know, like, and trust. And the way that people know, like, and trust you is by getting to know you, and you have to tell them that yourself. So basically, this whole thing eases the sales process when people have already heard you speak, already know who you are, they already are excited to work with you, they already like you, that trust process has already gotten started. But basically, we're going to help you figure out how to help you break down like your whole life story into bite-sized pieces that you can be able to utilize through this process.
Yeah. And before we talk about building a pitch, y'all, highlight, underline, star, stick it on your fridge, whatever. Use your speaking time is our first big key. Like, use it, actually use it. We're constantly amazed, Danica and I are, at how often people don't use the speaking time that they're given. Oftentimes that their company is already paid for, and people are like, oh no, like people already know what I do. Or, you're given 5 minutes to speak, and then people get in there and they're like, yeah, so here I am. You've heard me say it before, so just call me if you need me. And then that's it. And there's like a huge underutilization of any kind of speaking time that you have, period. So make sure that you're actually using the speaking time that you're given, and that you are, entitled to effectively. So what else does it do for you?
So on top of that, the second thing, of course, that it does for you is when you're good at speaking, even if someone doesn't use you, they're going to refer you, right? So you're creating opportunity for yourself just by like figuring out like what your perfect pitch is, like when you polish your pitch, when you make yourself a better speaker, when you work on this skill, like you're automatically creating more opportunity for you, because like when you go to an event, when you speak or whatever, like if you're good at it, if you've got a great pitch, if you are giving yourself to that moment, then people are going to remember you, and they're gonna be like, oh yes, that's the person like that I want to refer. Like, oh yeah, I saw that really cool person, I saw that really cool guy, that really cool girl, whatever it is. And they're going to refer you and create more opportunity for you that way, of course, right?
Yep.
And that's only going to be good for your network and your business.
Right. And then as a bonus, if you wanted a bonus, you'll also establish this credibility. So no matter who you are, who you speak to, when you actually can effectively use your speaking time, you establish credibility. And we're not here to tell you that you're going to become a celebrity. Like, you're going to be walking in Safeway and people are going to be like, oh my God, Derek, like I saw you speaking in a really like that. That's not the goal. But the goal is that you're building notoriety with the right people. So raise your hand if you speak at like office meetings, at sales meetings. If that's a part of your business. Anybody? No? Are we all agents here? Raise your hand if you're an agent. Yeah. Okay. We're all agents. Okay, cool. So knowing who you need to get in front of for your business is really going to be vital, right? So when people have seen you speak before, they actually trust that you're going to utilize your speaking time effectively. They're going to introduce you to other people. So a lot of the times that can be large networking meetings, right? So if you have someone that you want to get in front of, and you can get in front of the leg person that's seen you speak before, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I heard them talk, they were fantastic, they were really upbeat, and they kept us engaged, which in our industry is like the hardest thing to do, right? Is keeping people engaged. Then they motivate you and refer you into those other things, right? And they put you in a lot faster. So when you can get those legs up, those are really important. And having that credibility is necessary in what we do. So obviously that's the why. So now that we've, beaten it into your heads, you're like, okay, we get it. Like, it's important to be a good speaker. How do you actually do that when building any kind of pitch? What do you say? So we've broken it down for you into 4 steps. Here's the first one.
So the first step for you is to educate. So one of the big things for us is that we always try to lead with value. So we basically teach first and sell second. So because what happens sometimes is like you can get really salesy really quick, right? Because you're like, okay, let me tell you what I can do for you. You want to work with me, right? But one of the big things is like we want to make sure that we're leading with that value first, so that you can like they'll walk away knowing something new for you. Because a couple things happen when you start teaching versus selling, right? The first thing is that when they learn, their guard comes down, so they're automatically going to be listening a little bit more closely. They're going to be listening with a little bit less skepticism. They're going to be listening, okay, like less wary of sales, and more like interested in actually what you have to say. So that's really, really important. So one of the big things that you want to know is like, what do you know that they don't? Right? Because at the end of the day, like, you know that not everyone in the room is going to do business with you. Like if you're at a networking meeting or something like that, like what basically you want, like not everyone's going to do business with you, but what can you do? What can you teach them? What can you help them with, so that even just a little bit, they're going to walk away being like, I learned this from Shakira. I learned this from Andy, so that when they remember that thing in the future, they're going to be like, ah, yes, Andy taught me that. Right.
Right.
So then like they'll remember you and keep you top of mind, because especially like as an agent, people know a bunch of them. So you want to make sure that you're the one that's top of mind on that note.
Yeah. And when you think about things like a listing presentation, for example, y'all, you know that in a listing presentation, you're going in, you might get it, you might not get it. So being able to come in leading from that value point is going to help people see you as not just every single person that sees a big dollar sign above their head, but as a person that's really there to educate first. And that's a really big job of what you do, especially as an agent. We don't have to tell y'all that people don't know anything. Half the time you're doing a lot of hand holding and a lot of nitty gritty things that people don't understand. So when you can make sure that people know that from the front end, they're much more likely to trust you in the long run, right? So what's the second step? The second step is to problem solve, right? And it's in two parts here. So what you bring to the table specifically, and like what you and like your resources bring together as a business, right? So a lot of the times people just sell the solution, right? Without realizing that whoever they're talking to, however big their audience is, they don't even know that they have a problem to begin with, right? So they come in, they're like, hey, I heard you want to sell your house, or hey, heard, you need a title guy, whatever. And they're like, here's why I'm an awesome blank, without really getting into figuring out what is the problem that people are having, right? Like, and actually asking that. So there's a lot of power on a one-to-one conversation of asking like, hey, what's the biggest problem that you've had, especially right now in the market that we're having? Hey, tell me like what's been going wrong, so that then what you're going to come in with the solution, right? How you are going to be the solution to their problems. And on a large scale, if you find yourself at a big networking meeting, or you're, let's say you are at a barbecue with a bunch of people and you just like get to hang around, and people are like, hey, like I heard you're in real estate, tell us like what's going on, right? Like actually being able to, hey, here's the problem that everyone's facing, and here's how I bring a solution to the table, in a way that's not just let me, talk to you about the market in a way that's just going to lose you 5 minutes in, right? Okay, thumbs up if you're still with us. Yeah, okay, cool, awesome. So what's the third step?
So the third step is humanize. All right. So this is like kind of like what I was talking about earlier, right? Like people want to know, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. So we want to make sure that people know, like, and trust you. And the really big part about this is to humanize yourself within your industry. Because I think this picture is a really great example of this concept, because people look at an industry like real estate or a title or a mortgage company or like all of these different things, and they see this bird's eye view of the industry. But you want to make sure that you have a little bit more of a human touch, right? Like you want to make sure you have a little bit more of a personal touch, which kind of looks like this, right? You want to see it from this sort of perspective.
And a lot of the times, the challenge, right, is how can I, as a professional, make sure that someone is understanding not just like what I do, but who I am, right? And there's like this wariness. We've seen it a lot, right? Think about how often people have like a business Facebook page and a personal Facebook page, and the personal one just shares all the business one, but never the other way, right? Because people are wary of having like that interconnection between them as people. But oftentimes that's what gets people excited when they're like, oh my God, like my realtor, Derek, likes to golf like I do. That's so awesome. Or my realtor likes to do this. Like that's where people want to connect with you, and that they're excited to work with not just the end value product, what they're getting real estate, but the person that they're doing business with. And that's going to create a much more long-term client relationship than them just knowing that you're good at your job. Because when you can solve a problem that's good in what you do, awesome. But when you solve other problems, and when you can bring in other parts of, fun things for them, then you become like really an expert in a solution. And then the last key to that, y'all, is really just having a call to action when you're speaking.
Yeah, and this is really what's going to be able to create immediate action for you. And I think that it's really funny because we see a lot of people being like, hey, this is who I am. Like, hey, I'm a real estate agent. Hey, I'm entitled, hey, I'm in mortgage, whatever it is. And then being like, come talk to me if you want to talk to me, or like, come work with me if you want to work with me. But being able to create immediate action that will generate, not only generate like leads for you immediately, but also create relationships for you immediately and have the opportunity to do so can be a really, really powerful tool for you. So at the end of your speaking time, at the end of whatever like at the end of your speaking time, you want to make sure that you have like a really clear being like, hey, if you want to connect with me, here is how. So oftentimes what that means is that you can have like some type of like free offer or some type of like, hey, if you want more information about this thing. So like, for example, like Camilla and I have a really great about you form that allows us to connect with our clients. And we talk about that all the time. So that's one of the resources that we offer for free all the time. Like, hey, if you want our about you form that has like a bunch of different things that we learn about our clients, that we can connect with them more fully and deepen that relationship, since that's what we do. Like, let us know and we'll shoot you an email with that form, right? So what can you offer for free that's not going to obviously be detrimental to your business, but will entice people to reach out to you specifically immediately? Because this is a really great way to engage and connect right away instead of just waiting for people to approach you.
And a really key here, y'all, is to do that on the end of the conversation, whatever that speaking time is, whatever that conversation is, to have that offer in at the end. Because again, if you lead from that place, if you're like, hey, I have a free CMA for you, that's the first thing you say when you engage with a person. They already see the dollar sign situation happening and they're like, okay. Some people might be like, okay, yeah, I woke up this morning and I was dreaming about getting a CMA by the end of the day. So that's really awesome that you provided that for me. But most people are not thinking that way, right? Most people don't wake up and they're like thinking about the things that you're thinking about. So make sure that the things that you're offering are coming on the back end of a human conversation, on the back end of actually understanding who they are, so that you're actually solving the problem that they need to be solved, that you're actually offering the resource. Now, this can also look as simple or as complex as you want it. You could end whatever you're doing with someone and be like, hey, by the way, Monica, just so you know, like, I know that you're saying like right now it's not really a great time for you. You're not really thinking about selling, buying. That's okay. I actually do like these really awesome recipes on Facebook. So if you want to become my Facebook friend, like I can definitely share some recipes with you. And I'd love to stay connected. And then you're building a relationship for the future, right? You're not making someone feel like if they don't have interest in whatever you're selling in this very moment, that you don't want to connect with them whatsoever. So for me, for example, that looks like a lot of the times, you can see that my name right now on Zoom has my cell phone number, because that's typically like, for us, when we're finishing class, that's good. But when I have a big speaking event, like, and I'm talking to a lot of agents at the same time, oftentimes that handle has my cell phone number and or my Instagram handle, because my always endpoint is like, if you want to come laugh at me, you can definitely follow me on Instagram, because I post ridiculous things there and I'm laughing at myself there all the time. So regardless of where someone is in that process, like oftentimes you just have them there. But giving someone, like Danica said, a direct framework to how they can connect with you. And here's a bonus tip for you, especially when you're networking, especially when you're working with a lot of people. Handing someone a flyer with your business information at the end of it is much less effective than just being like, hey, just so you know, just so I can always be there as a resource for you, I actually have my digital business card. I can airdrop it to you or text it to you real quick. That way you have it and you know you can reach out to me for any real estate related questions. And then boom, you actually get into that person's like contact list right there on the spot immediately. And if you have it prepped, if you're actually prepared and you have your contact card made and it says in your company, you know, Compass or whatever, Intero or whatever your company name is or your team name, and then dash real estate, then that person for forever is going to be able to open their phone, search in their contacts and say real estate, and then your name populates. Instead of you expecting that 6 months or 1 month or 1 week later, they're going to dig out a flyer that they got at something that they saw you somewhere, right? So make it easy for people. That's the last point with just like all of this, is just make it as easy as humanly possible for people to find you, to connect with you, and don't create barriers. Don't make it so that they only feel like they can talk to you if they're here and ready to buy right in the second. Okay. So the next part is really just like how to actually break down when you're pitching, right? So your pitch really just comes into like really two big keys, right? Why should they choose your company? And then why should they choose you? Right, you all have different resources that you have access to. You all have different things that you can activate and things that you can provide. So actually knowing those things and knowing what makes you distinctly different, especially as an agent, y'all, people know 7 to 10 realtors at any given time, according to Inman, and they only retain 2 of them. So if you're not that first or that second realtor, like people don't know who you are. So actually knowing not just the industry ones that you know, you're like, I'm at my brokerage because they give me more commission. Because let's be honest, that's why some people are the, yeah, for sure. But why should someone care that you're with this company, right? How long has this company been existent? What do they provide that you can really like have and leverage as a person to have confidence and as you're going to your different presentations? And then why should they choose you? Danica and I talk all the time about having an actual like network list of like the best sushi, the best Cairo. If you're in networking groups, knowing who does taxes in your area, who's a good accountant, and having that prepared so that when you walk into a listing presentation, you're like, hey, you know, I'm not just the real estate expert, I'm the local expert in whatever area or whatever city or whatever. When you work with me, I'm not here to solve a problem, I'm here to solve all your problems. Like there's power to have in that, right? And then also like not being scared to like throw something fun about yourself. So for example, Danica and I love mojitos. Like we love mojitos. So if you're a fan of mojitos, like just like call us after, we'll find a time. No, but we're huge fans of mojitos. So when we talk to people and they say anything about liking cocktails, we're like, cool, how do you feel about mojitos? Because we're constantly looking to like go mojito hopping with more new people. And like, we love to do that. We love to take people out and mojito hop. So we say that often. When we speak in front of large groups of people, when we connect in a small one-on-one setting, I'm like, hey, I love to eat and I love to drink mojitos. So if you like either of those things, we're definitely going to be pals. And then having that, so again, people can latch onto those things and they like that because it's personal and they know now that we can connect on this level and not just the business level. Does this make sense? Nod if you're still with us. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm seeing some nods. Okay, cool. And then knowing like what's essential for them to know. What we mean by this, y'all, is that whenever you're speaking to someone or a group of people, you have X amount of time. So you need to know like what's the most important thing that they need to know in order to walk away from this conversation. And you're like, okay, cool, they got it. Keeping it, the terminology, keeping it as simple as humanly possible and like having like those key points. So for us, for example, when we talk, and a lot of times we're talking to realtors, we're talking to lenders, we're talking to other people in the industry, because like we said, like our main source of business is just speaking of engagements. We know that the biggest points for us to hit are number 1, most gifts are consumable. Number 2, we put a system in place so realtors don't have to stress. Number 3, they're fully tax deductible. And number 4, we're fun. That's it. So whether you give Danica and I 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, whether you throw us in front of, you're like, hey, I brought you to book club and they want to hear what you do. Danica and I, whatever amount of time that we're given, we will hit those 4 points. So it's important that you know what your 4 points are, like what's absolutely essential for people to know. And then that way you can approach any amount of whatever kind of presentation you're doing, whatever kind of networking that you're doing, whenever you're talking to people, you know that you're hitting those 4 points, right? And then the last thing y'all hear is to watch out for the shiny object syndrome, because here's what we see a lot happen is you hear this one thing, you're like, oh my God, that sounds like a great idea. Like I should definitely do this or have this Instagram ad or, you know, run this Facebook ad, whatever. And then it doesn't go well the first time around or whatever. And then you're just like, oh, never mind. Or like, maybe I should say this about myself in my pitch to just talk about my family, because that's a really big reason why I do what I do. And then one person like gives you kind of like a blank look and you're like, oh, never mind. I'll just skip it next time. Actually give yourself enough time to measure success and get comfortable with whatever it is that you're doing. Don't implement too many things too quickly. And we say that, and it's funny because we're literally like in a class where we're teaching you all these things to implement, but we say that with the caveat of like, make sure that you implement these things slowly, right? Don't try to throw everything at yourself all at once because it's not going to go well. What's one thing that you can do and then just slowly build upon that, okay? So some quick strategies for refining for you.
So a couple things for you. So at this point, you should probably have at least a little bit of an idea about like what your major points are. So as you're going into the refining process, one of the big things that we always suggest is to like actually write it all out. Because if you just like, let's be honest, like I absolutely have a tendency to do this. If I don't have things like actually written out, like if I don't know exactly what I'm going to say, I have a tendency to like ramble a bit and then just like keep going. And then all of a sudden I'm talking about like something that happened to me 4 years ago. And then I'm like, oh God, what now? Like, how do I get back to the original point? So one of our big tips is to like actually write it all out so that you can have it all in front of you, because at that point, then you're able to like start from this really big space. And then if you need to cut it down and you need to refine it and refine it and refine it so that you have if you have a smaller amount of speaking time, you're able to be like, okay, here's what I originally have. Now, how do I get to this point, to this amount of time? So write it all out, practice often. Obviously, practice makes perfect, or practice makes progress. Is actually what I like to say more often. That's actually really important, of course, because the more you practice, the better it's going to be, the smoother it's going to be, the more natural it's going to sound. And obviously, that's super important too, because I mean, yes, you wanted to make sure that you're hitting all your points, but you also want to make sure that you sound pretty genuine as well. Because if it sounds like really stilted or fake or something like that, like you're not going to connect as well, and people will be able to tell that.
And that's huge when it comes to your scripts, y'all. Like we cannot circle that one a million times over. Like make sure that you're actually practicing those scripts that you have and running them with other people so that you make sure that they sound like you, because there might be a word in there that you're like, I never say that. For example, I drop a lot of y'alls. So if you were to look at my scripts and you look at Danica's scripts, there are 0 y'alls in her and about 37 in all of mine, because I'm yelling all up and down the place, right? So if Danica were to I'm like, hey, Danica, here's the script. And she takes it and she's like, okay. And so y'all, it would sound so uncomfortable coming out of her mouth. It would be great. Which is why it's important for you to actually practice and make sure that you're drilling that and drilling yourself and putting yourself in the different scenarios, right? Like, when was the time that you felt uncomfortable and you were like, I had no idea what to say? Can you write yourself a script for that? And or ask someone else, ask an agent friend, ask a buddy, hey, what would you say if someone said this? Write it all out, refine it to what you would say, and then practice it so that the next time you get that, you're like, okay, cool, I'm ready and I'm prepared. That's a very easy and effective way of utilizing those like, oh crap moments that you're just caught off guard and actually turning them into something productive, because you have a roadmap of which script to build out, right?
I love that. Oh crap moments. Because we all have them, like, oh crap, something happened. What now? So yeah, that's super, super important. Now, Camilla just warned you about shiny object syndrome, but I am going to tell you right now that it is okay to adjust if you feel like you need to. Don't think that just because you wrote something down the first time that you have to keep it like that forever. Because like, yeah, maybe sometimes your business pivots, or like your reasons pivot, or your why, like the reasons why you're doing things pivot. And it's okay to like add those things in, especially if it makes it more you, or more genuine, more authentic for you. So like, yeah, like Camilla said, I don't say y'all, like I just really can't really pull that off, to be honest with you. It's just like not my,
yeah, sounds terrible.
It just doesn't really work for me. So like, yeah, like Camilla and I share scripts all the time because we're business partners. We want to be on the same page. We want to make sure that like we're hitting the same notes and like making sure we're doing the same things. But like the way we say things obviously are different. So like, don't be afraid to adjust that to make it more you. And like I mentioned before, also you want to start big and then narrow it down to like that small, to narrow it down to like your time frame, right? So like if you like sometimes you're gonna have like 15 minutes to talk about yourself and what you do. Sometimes you're gonna have 2 minutes, right? So write out the 15 one first, because that way you have all of the information and it's easier to cut than it is to add. So that's super important. And then we have a last point here for you for refining is really know your audience. So one of the things that is really important for us is that like we talk to all sorts of different types of people. Like we talk to all sorts of different types of people across all of the industries that relate to real estate. So sometimes we're talking to just agents. Sometimes we're talking to a mix of agents and affiliates. Sometimes we're just talking to affiliates. It really depends. So we're able to like really like adjust and be flexible about the way we say things in order to make sure that it's hitting the right notes for our audience. So the more you know about your audience, the better it's going to be for you, because you'll be able to connect in a way that's going to be beneficial and relevant for them in the long run. That makes a lot of difference as well.
Yeah. And then lastly, y'all, here's some keys for success. Just anytime that you're talking, super important things to know. By the way, I would like everyone to know that I deeply searched until I found an image of a keychain with a house on it. Just in case anyone was wondering, that was purposeful, super purposeful, because it made me laugh. Okay, anyways. So number one key, know how long you're talking. Like if you're at a networking meeting, if you're going to be in BNI, if you're involved in this thing and you have 15 minutes, you need to know that. You never want to be surprised. Right? If someone's like, hey, Mark, I want you to come in and I want you to chat with like my book club about real estate or whatever. I have a friend that has questions, and you're like, okay, cool, for sure. And then you come in and then the friend's like, yeah, I have 30 seconds. And then I need to run to pick up my kids. That's not going to go very well. So just know like, hey, so when it comes in like those small conversations, can you ask, hey, by the way, what's your schedule look like today? Like, do you have a couple minutes or is another time better? When you have a big group of people, make sure that you actually know how long you have. Obviously know who you're talking to and know your audience and know kind of like what the questions are they're going to have for you. Anticipate questions, obviously, you know that, your realtors. And then 3, practice your environments. What does that mean? So if you do a lot of talking to people on Zoom, if you're constantly like, okay, cool, like let's do this on Zoom, like let's meet here. If you meet a client for the first time on Zoom, then you should practice your pitches on Zoom. So you should set up your desk the way that it's going to be set up when you actually talk to them. If you're going to do BNI virtually for the next year and you need to practice that, practice with your laptop where it's going to be standing the way that you are. So like right now I'm standing at my desk in my office and this is how I practice. Because trust me, I've tried it. Like I've tried practicing scripts when I'm driving on the road and I have like Danica or one of our other business partners like on and I'm like, hey, blah, 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 and then I'm making turns. It just doesn't work because my body's not actually prepping itself for what it's going to be. If you're going to be doing a lot of listing presentations in your conference room, go to your conference room, practice there. Make sure that you're actually prepping in the environments that you're going to be giving it. And if you're like, okay, well, I'm going to be in kitchens. Cool. You have friends. Hey, like, can I borrow your kitchen for 10 minutes and I will buy you a cup of coffee? Like, and your friends are like, sure, you can come over with Starbucks. Like, I'm not going to be mad about it. And then you just come over and you hang out in their kitchen, you practice. And then number 4, the big one, get feedback. Ask people, how did that sound? Ask your teammates, your like fellow agents, your friends, ask your friends. Like as an agent, you're a person that's consistently developing your craft and consistently working to get better. So if you added something new to your listing presentation that you're like, okay, cool, I really like, I want to have these like 5 minutes at the end where I talk about these 5 things that make me unique and this is why you should work with me, run it with your friends and say, hey, how did that sound? Was there anything that you would be like, no, don't say that? Or is there anything that you're like, dude, that was awesome? And then do it multiple times, get feedback from different people. Yes, obviously when you're running your like general scripts that your friends will have no idea about, for sure, like, is it helpful to also run it with fellow agents? Yeah, but also your friends likely are your target audience. Normal people that don't know anything about real estate, that you need to make sure that your language is appropriate too, so they can be your biggest resource. Practice with your spouse if you're married or your significant other. Also probably a good resource for you. They might be very confused, and so that's important for you to know if you're too technical in your language. And also just like make sure that you're fun, because your spouse knows you really well. For example, like my husband, he knows like if I'm practicing something with him, he's like, dude, you sound so salesy right now. Like drop your shoulders and try that again. And I'm like, okay, turn around, swivel, come back. Hey, good morning. My name's Kamal. Like that sort of thing your spouse knows about you, because the people that know you the closest know you best, right? So we really just want to give you some keys, and we're going to open it up for a couple questions here in a second. But the biggest thing, y'all, that we have for you, what are you building, right? What choice are you going to make today that will have a massive impact on your business 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, because it starts today. So yes, we told you to watch out for shiny object syndrome, not to overwhelm yourself. But we're actually going to give you 10 seconds right now to just look over your notes or just reflect back on all the brilliance. Just kidding. But just to think, like, what's the first thing that I want to implement from this? And write it down. Or type it in your phone, or if you're driving, whisper it to your kids so that they can write it in their phones, whatever. So I'm going to give you actually like 10 full seconds while I take this very long sip of tea to do that. What's the first thing that you're going to do?
Put it out into the ether so that it comes back to you later on. Whatever floats your boat.
Whisper it softly, whatever you want to do. I have a timer going if you're like, wow, this is the longest 10 seconds of my whole life. Yeah, that's what happens when we're measuring time. Okay, cool. Because here's what I'll tell y'all. You can watch every webinar, you can read every book, you can do all the things, but if you don't actually implement, nothing changes. So we gave you 4 steps of like pitch breakdown. We gave you keys for success wherever you're going to start. For some of you, that might just be thinking about, okay, when do I speak to people? When do I feel uncomfortable talking to people? What are the things I need to work on? Right? For others of you, it might be, okay, cool. How can I have a call to action? How can I end the way that I speak more effectively, a little bit more cleanly, whatever it is. If you just did, gotta mute somebody. If you just did one thing for the next like 8 months, the entire way that you speak would be completely different because you would have taken all 8 steps, right? So just like do it one by one, implement slowly, and then you're going to get there. And lastly, our favorite thing to end on, always, 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 is our favorite Maya Angelou quote, which is, at the end of the day, people won't remember what you said or did. They will remember how you made them feel. And when it comes to speaking, however long that you're speaking, this is really what we want y'all to focus in on, is how are you leaving people? What are the feelings that you're creating in them? How are they coming out of interactions with you, professionally, personally, whatever, so that you can really focus in on that. How do you want people to feel? Like Danica and I, we want you to feel energized. After you've heard us talk, we want you to leave and be like chuckling to yourself, like, hey, that was fun. That was different. Cool. That's how we want you to feel. And that's how we organize our speaking time accordingly. So just focus in on that. And really the biggest reason that we say that, y'all, and the biggest reason why we're big about not being salesy and selling in a way that feels good, is because we know that the more you do that, and the more we all do that in our industry, the more we can step real estate away from this industry that people have these misconceptions. I don't have to tell y'all that there's plenty of people who think that realtors show up to closing day, sign a couple forms, make 40 grand. That's how the job works, right? Like the more you can actually focus on leaving people feeling good and trusting you more, the more that the next time they hear some BS like that at their dinner party, they're like, heck no, like, let me tell you, you know, what Monica did for me. Let me tell you, you know, everything that Derek did. Let me tell you what Mark does for me and like how Mark approaches it. Like Mark's never made me feel like that. And that's the way that you want to leave people. So we can start to eradicate those things and people can feel good about the way that you're selling and you can feel good about the way that you're selling. So thank you so much for being in class today. I know we threw a lot at you. If you have any questions, we do have a couple minutes. So we're going to open it up for questions. And I always say it with a caveat. If you don't have questions, that's okay too. If you're just like, that was a lot of info, that's cool. But we know that oftentimes people do have questions. So does anyone have a question? Feel free to unmute yourself or throw it in the chat.
I don't have any questions, but it was fun.
Good. That's what we like to hear.
Thank you.
For sure. Anybody else? No, we're all dazzled. We're just like, oh my God. Kamal.
I joined late. What were the 4 points that you said?
Yeah, absolutely. So the breaking down here, let me just walk back to the pitch breakdown is really just making sure that you know, like, why my company, why me, like what's essential for them to know. And then making sure that you implement slowly and watching out for that shiny object syndrome.
Mm-hmm. So when you say like shiny object syndrome, meaning you don't want to oversell yourself, but you want to just be as honest and as genuine as possible, or I mean,
yeah, that's part of it. And it's also just like not trying to implement too many things and take them away really quickly. So for example, like not saying like, oh, I'm going to add this to my pitch, or I'm going to add that to my pitch. And then it doesn't go well one time. And then you're like, never mind, because you don't actually give things enough time to measure whether or not they worked for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Anybody else?